Hello and welcome back to TVP World. My name is Alex Umland and these are World Talks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has refused to host United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres in Kyiv following his visit to Russia. Gutteres went to the city of Kazan, Russia, to attend the BRICS summit, where on the sidelines he met Putin, who was wanted by the International Criminal Court for alleged war crimes. In remarks at the summit, Gutteres called for a just peace. After his visit to Russia, Gutteres planned to travel to Kyiv. And joining us now to discuss this topic further is Andreas Umland, analyst from the Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Good morning and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning from Kyiv.
So now, let's say a basic question arises from all of this, because for what purpose did UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres meet Vladimir Putin at this latest BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia? I mean, it's pretty clear that he did not improve the UN's already bad image internationally with this. What is your take on it?
I was also surprised by this because there are a number of reasons in which Russia is undermining the very idea of the United Nations. The Ukrainian Soviet Republic was one of the founding republics of the United Nations in 1945, unlike the Russian Federation. And it's now being attacked and its territory is being annexed and so on. And there is this, as you rightly mentioned, indictment or that the secretary has visited Putin, although he is wanted by the International Criminal Court. So, and a number of other aspects could be mentioned. I guess he went there because a large part of the world's population was represented in a way at the summit, because India and China took part. But still, it was not necessary, from my point of view, to go to Russia and thereby, in a way, endorse Russia's behavior vis-à-vis Ukraine and also in other regions of the world, like in Moldova or Georgia.
So exactly, you mentioned this endorsement by, well, potentially, I mean, I'm thinking now maybe of other states, like, for example, we have the issue of Taiwan and China, and of course the Balkan states, elections in Georgia, with Russia trying to, let's say, suck these countries back into its sphere of influence. Just how much do you think, well, this type of gesture, if I may call it so, may embolden these other more aggressive actors on the international stage, like Iran, North Korea, to pursue, well, what they would like to do to other nations?
Yes, indeed. This is one of the problems of Russia's behavior, that it could be a model for other countries that have revisionist aims or revanchist aims and that want to change borders, that want to expand their territories, that want to acquire nuclear weapons. Russia's behavior suggests that you can do it, that if you are like Ukraine without weapons of mass destruction, that you should in fact get them, because otherwise you will become a victim of countries that have nuclear weapons. And now we have actually two countries with nuclear weapons fighting against Ukraine, namely Russia and North Korea. So, these wider implications are very troublesome, because the whole UN system created in 1945 is becoming unraveled, because such basic things as non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, the stability of borders, the territorial integrity, the national sovereignty of states is being undermined.
So now, I just want to go back for a second to that visit of Antonio Guterres in Kazan at this BRICS summit. Now, he issued a statement that said, we need peace in Ukraine, a just peace in line with the UN Charter, international law and General Assembly resolution. How do you think, I mean, how might he try and explain, or maybe what is his vision of, his visit getting us any closer to that?
I mean, this is all very good, what Gutteres said there, but the problem is that Russia has repeatedly and outspokenly rejected that, and that it wants to have Ukrainian territories that it is not ready to return any of the annexed territories. The Russian constitution has been changed. In fact, according to the Russian constitution, if you take it seriously, Russia is actually in possession of territories of Ukraine that it does not control. Those, for instance, of the Zaporizhia or Kherson oblasts. So there's the stark contradiction between what Guterres says and what is happening on the ground and what Putin is voicing publicly and other representatives of Russia. So one wonders, what is the sense then of visiting Russia and then sort of endorsing Putin, because actions matter more than words. It's not what you say; it's what you do. And this visit was an action. It was not. It was in a way more had more weight than the words that Guterres was pronouncing.
That's right. Actions do speak louder than words. And you said you're in Kyiv. So what has been the reaction in Ukraine to this visit in the media and amongst people that you have seen there?
Yeah, people are outraged that this has happened. Also, there's a very uncomfortable photograph of Guterres sort of bowing when greeting, when shaking hands with Putin, which looks very strange in these times when Putin is here bombarding cities basically every night, and civilians are being killed on purpose, not by accident. These are not sort of misguided missiles that are targeting military or military-industrial objects and then are sort of accidentally killing civilians. On the contrary, the civilian population, schools, hospitals, shops are being bombarded on purpose to terrorize the Ukrainian population into a capitulation of Ukraine. And at the same time, Guterres is bowing to Putin. So that's also, I guess, the reason why Zelenskyy has now canceled the meeting with Guterres.
And how do you think, if at all, might this somehow influence the future of Ukraine in terms of any planned arms deliveries or help by its allies?
I don't think that is much connected. I think the Western discussion is somewhat separate. I would think, or I would hope, that many of the Western leaders were also embarrassed by this visit of Guterres and this unfortunate behavior there. The problem here is rather that Russia is threatening to transform this war into World War III. Again, something that Guterres should be addressing. It's basically Russia is saying that if you help Ukraine, then those countries that help Ukraine may be attacked, and that is quite openly said by, if not by Putin, then by Medvedev, who is often laughed about. But one should remember that Dmitry Medvedev is the deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, and has therefore an official position in the Russian bureaucratic hierarchy, a very high position, at least formally very high position. And that when Medvedev makes these outrageous statements, he is representing Russia. He is not just voicing his own private opinion. And these threats are then scaring the Western populations. And then the politicians, although they may understand that this is a bluff and that Russia will not extend this war into World War III, but they have to respond to the requests, to the demands from their societies, not to deliver certain weapons, not to give permissions, and to engage in negotiations with Russia.
So now this brings me to my next question, because you mentioned a response by politicians to certain actions. Many have criticized the UN and for some time have been calling for changes that should be made to it. Do you think that the UN does require some sort of changes, that it's an institution that's not really, will let's say, adapt to these current times?
Yes, the paradox situation is now that if you have revisionist powers that want to change borders and that want to expand their territories in the UN Security Council, as is currently the case with Russia, then the United Nations paradoxically become an instrument of a state's territorial enlargement, and they become an instrument for covering genocidal policies and for hindering international law to be implemented. And so the United Nations are sort of put on their head. They are performing the exact opposite of what this organization was founded for in 1945, namely to protect borders and to stabilize the international state system. And now the international state system is becoming unraveled with the help of the rules of the United Nations, in particular the Security Council. So that makes it obvious that this organization is not just not fulfilling its function, it's actually undermining and contradicting its original purpose. So there's obviously some fundamental change necessary.
All right, Andreas Umland, analyst, Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Thank you very much for your insight and for speaking to us here on TVP World this morning.
Thanks for having me.
And with that, we conclude this edition of World Talks. But for more interviews like these and updates in the current news, do stay tuned to TVP World.